right, hi class. So today's reading lesson, you guys need to open up your textbooks and to page 194. Page 194. So today's lesson, we are going to be talking about World War II. So we've actually had recently where Landon actually brought in some artifacts and some things from his heritage. So we actually got to look at some of those things recently from previous wars and things like that. And so today we're actually going to read a story. So first off, some background information. It's not in your book, but listen as I read this background information. World War I and II. After World War I, many soldiers in France were unable to find work and many people faced poverty. Poverty means that they were poor or didn't have as much money or were harder off than other people. In Germany, one man promised economic prosperity and security to the people. He attacked many smaller countries surrounding Germany and initiated World War II. In 1940, France became Germany's next target. In an effort to regain their freedom, resistance groups secretly organized to begin fighting back. France finally regained economic stability several years after the end of World War II. So, listen to a couple vocab words. I think that most of you will know these, but just in case. So, bullets are ammunition for guns. So, ammunition is something that can be used. So, for in this sentence, the bullet is an ammunition. So, it is it's what's being used in the gun. The soldiers entered or invaded a country. So, to invade is to kind of enter and try to take over. The government started rationing the food. Rationing is our vocab word there. So rationing would be to limit. Okay, we've actually kind of seen something like that if you go to the store recently and they'll say that you can only have one package of water per family or something like that. That's kind of similar. And then the men secretly smuggled guns and supplies to help their country win the war. So to smuggle is to kind of sneak in, okay? All right. So when we look at something like fruit, just a little bit of a background information before we start our lesson. If we look at something simple like fruit, we don't think that it actually might mean much. It's not a big deal. We can go to the store and get fruit. Some of us might even grow fruit or know someone that does, but to us it's not a big deal. Well, back then, especially in the time of war, it was hard to get things like that. And so we can see how maybe something to us doesn't seem like much, but to them it could be. Many countries faced poverty after World War I. Soldiers in France were unable to find work and were forced onto street corners, selling fruit and flowers for money. In Germany, a man named Adolf Hitler began telling the Germans that he could make things better if they would do as he said. The German people made Hitler their leader. As Hitler made Germany strong again, he began attacking weaker countries. So, how do you think that the French people felt about Hitler's actions? And I don't believe that they thought that that's how things were going to go at first. And so I think it was hard for them to understand what all was happening as it was happening. All right, so try to follow along with me as we go through this. So you should be on page 194, okay? Page 194. So follow along as I read. World War II. In 1933, the country of France was still trying to recover from World War I. Some of the men who had been hurt in that terrible war could not get jobs. They had to stand in the street corners selling flowers or fruit. Food and clothing were expensive. Most people had to work very hard just to keep food on the table. Meanwhile, across the border from France, a man named Adolf Hitler had become the ruler of Germany. His country was also poor and weak. many people did not have jobs and food was scarce in many places. Hitler promised his country that he would make Germany great. He turned it into a military nation. He told the people that loyalty to the military leaders would save them from poverty. Many people believed Hitler and joined his military movement. He even appointed men and women to start clubs for children called Hitler Youth. The children in the Hitler Youth wore uniforms and learned about military life. They were taught to be physically fit and self-disciplined. Hitler soon began to take back lands that had belonged to Germany in the past. He took part of, I'm gonna just bear with me. Czechoslovakia. He put soldiers and ammunition along the border between Germany and France. Finally, he invaded Poland. The Polish people fought back and asked for help from the free countries, but at last they were conquered. That also means defeated. Leaders in France and England had not wanted to go to war. They knew that Hitler was making Germany a military nation, but they wanted all the countries of the world to stop making guns and ammunition. However, when Hitler invaded Poland, European leaders knew that they would have to declare war on Germany, or else Hitler would invade the rest of Europe. By the time it was too late for England and France to get ready for war, Germany was already fully prepared to fight. The Germans had thousands of soldiers, tanks, big guns, and fighter planes. They used armored vehicles that could move quickly into enemy territory and take over. These fast mobile units were called panzer units. Germany invaded France in 1940. The French people in the north heard that the lightning-fast German panzer units were coming. Quickly, the French people closest to danger packed their belongings and fled to the south. Many of these people were poor, so they had to walk carrying whatever they could hold. These homeless people were called war refugees. The German planes traveled deep into France and attacked the refugees. The planes also bombed many of the quiet farms and villages. The children in the refugees quickly learned what war meant. They faced starvation and death just as their parents did. Many of them became orphans. They had to learn to survive. France soon surrendered to Germany. Then the Germans took control of the French government. The refugees returned to their homes and tried to rebuild, but the Germans demanded food and valuables from France. Food grown in France was sent to feed German soldiers. Soon the French people did not have enough to eat. The German-controlled French government started a progress called rationing. Even if a French person had enough money to buy what he wanted, he could not buy farm products like eggs, vegetables, milk, and cheese. He needed a ration coupon. Only families with small children were given ration coupons for these items. The people of France had to live through rationing and the hard German rule. But some French people were determined to be free again. Many secret resistance groups were started in France. The most famous group of all was the Force Française d'Intérieur, or FFI for short. This French name means the Forces of the French Interior. The FFI smuggled guns and ammunition to the country. It also spied on the Germans and reported German war plans to the British Army. Sometimes the FFI smuggled prisoners out of Germany. The Germans suspected any French man or woman of being in the FFI. Because of this, many French children volunteered to help in the secret fight against Germany. A child could carry a piece of information in his pocket and walk right past a German soldier without even being noticed. After a while, the Germans realized what was going on. Some children were caught passing information for the FFI. They were punished just as if they were adults. Finally, in 1945, America, Great Britain, and their allies defeated Germany. Remember, we learned in social studies, allies mean that a group that was on the same side. France was freed, but her government fell apart. The rationing and poverty continued in France for several years until the government became strong again. Only then could the French children return to childhood. So, in this story, we listened and we kind of heard some more information about what war and what the war actually did to the children and to the people of that time frame. So imagine that at the end we heard that children were being used to pass information to a secret group to help them get information and help them continue what they were doing to help with the war efforts. So it's kind of hard to imagine that we might have been put in that position then. But in the story, you can kind of see how that could have happened or how that could have affected people your age. So think about all of the things that happened. Things happened over a long period of time, but they couldn't buy certain things without what was called a rationing coupon, and they couldn't go certain places at times. And it was somewhat of a protection thing, but it was also the way that the Germans were controlling some things. So this story kind of just told us what life was like, especially for families and children during the war. So go back into the lesson plan and it'll tell you what page you need to do. You're going to be doing page 82 in your workbook, and it'll give you a little more information on that. All right, thanks for listening, guys. Bye.